Okay, we got a nice spring day and plenty of sunshine, so we are going to tackle this thing again. We're going to put a little bit more testing equipment on here, basically one more pressure gauge and a valve, and see what we can figure out. We're also going to replace the fuel filter and see what kind of contamination we got, because it's starting to look pretty obvious now in that filter. So we're going to see what we got and where that stuff is coming from. I'll turn it around, put it on time lapse. Okay, after a few iterations, we have this where we want it. And just to explain this tangled web of fuel lines, is this line comes in from the fuel pump and it goes to a T. As long as this valve is closed, then it's going to continue through a fuel filter and then through a 0 to 15 psi fuel pressure gauge, and then into this fuel pressure regulator, which should regulate it between 2 to 5, I believe. Check on that later. And then into another fuel pressure gauge, 0 to 15, and we should be able to tell how much fuel pressure we're getting out of the pump and what it's being reduced to. After that, it's going to go into the carburetor. So prior to starting this up, one of the tests on this particular experiment is to check and see how many fuel clamps, how many screw clamps and other kind of spring clamps we have in the shop, and then grab them all up and then use just about all of them. The other thing is, once we get this running and it's going to idle fairly well, and we've got this fuel pressure adjusted to where we want, we're going to open up this valve, and that is going to run boink into this bottle. And what that's going to do is dump fuel into that bottle, start filling that up from the fuel pump pressure, and we will be able to see how much crud there is coming out of that line coming from the fuel pump. Excuse me. So we know we had contamination in this carburetor. It seemed like a plastic type of substance, and then there was also some questionable fuel hose, short sections of fuel hose. So we'll look at that stuff later, but right now this is probably the best time to check and make sure that I have the proper fire and life insurance, because if this doesn't go the way I want it, it could result in a vintage Chevy fireball and what some people may call self-immolation. Anyway, hopefully none of that happens. The first thing we're going to do is just idle it up, and then it's pretty cold, and then we'll get it to idle smooth, and then we'll just basically run it. After we adjust the fuel pressure, then we're going to dump some fuel into that container and check and see what kind of crud there is in it. And if it's clean, then we're going to dump it back in the tank. If it's dirty, then we're going to filter it and use it either in the Ranger or put it back in here if it's nice and clean. Other than that, wish me luck, and let's see how this goes. Okay, neutral, no choke. We're going to try it without the choke. That seems fair, fairly dangerous, that is. Apparent leaks. We do see the fuel filter filling up. We've got just a little over 4 psi coming off the fuel pump, and we're currently adjusted down to 3 psi. So I'm going to adjust this down to about 2 psi. usually like about 2 psi. Alright, so that went up. Okay, adjusted to about 2 psi at idle. When I revved it up, it went a little bit higher, but it didn't get to 3. Right now it's about 2.5. So we're going to dump a little bit of fuel in here and see what happens. The engine will keep running until it runs out of fuel going to the carburetor, so we should have some time. There's going to be a little bit of pressure release since we've got this pretty tight. Let's see how this goes. Okay, it's filling up. Stop it for a minute. Last thing we want to do is have this bottle pressurized and then that thing fly out of there. Turn it off again. Okay, we got well, actually we're not that, we've only got a few gallons in the tank, so we're not going to be able to run too much through there. Open it up again. You can see the fuel pressure on that coming from the gauge is down to near 0. I don't feel this Coke bottle opening or getting pressurized, so hold it open a little more. Sure where that fuel contamination came from. We're kind of trying to save ourselves dropping that fuel tank. I mean, it's very possible that any of the stuff that I added on here could have added to some of that contamination. Okay, so we got about a half a gallon, or no, half full of that 2-liter bottle. We'll let this carburetor fill back up. Died. Ran out of fuel. So this gauge was reading like close to 0. Let's see if we can pump some more fuel in there. So it's right about 1 psi. It's coming up a little bit. Even coming back up to 2 psi, so let's adjust this. So that's about 2 psi. What the heck? All right. So it's possible that there's more contamination in here, and that's what's causing it. This is doing exactly the same thing it was on the side of the road, or before I was on the side of the road, which was it was dying intermittently. It acted just like it was running out of fuel, and that's what I believe it's doing now. So we are going to take this. I'm going to take this connection off at the fuel inlet, and we are going to see if there's any crud. Actually, we'll just take this off, see if there's any crud in there. And if there is, clean it out. If we have to, we'll pull off the top of the carburetor. But it seems like it's running out of fuel, and I don't think it's related to this whole mess here, but you never know. Let's see if there's any contamination in this bottle. Oh, there's a leak in the bottle. Yeah, the toolbox is filling up. Well, there's another thing I gotta fix. Shoot. All right, let's take this off and deal with this fuel that's filling up this little toolbox. Back in oil. Okay, we've got the top of the carburetor off and we're seeing more contamination. That black stuff in there, so we're gonna pull that fuel out of there probably with a cloth, soak it up, and then capture some more of that black material and see what that is. Then we'll figure out where it's coming from. So can't imagine that it's getting past that carburetor, you know. We replace all the lines, and head of it is the next step, I guess. Okay, we got the carburetor part, and it's the same thing as in the high school parking lot. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but there should be daylight through there. That there's something clogging that. Found some more of these black particles. That's kind of hard to see, but I did get some of it here, and that came out of the bowl, and it looks solid. That one feels like silicone. It feels like silicone too. So I also got some of this other stuff out of there. This is a lot harder. Anyway, we're gonna clean this whole thing out. Somehow it's something past that fuel filter. So, because I'm not getting anything in the fuel filter now. I did get some stuff out of that fuel filter out of the last one, but man, I tell you, these stinkers. I went to change the gasket, and of course I destroyed this. This thing was so old. This is out of that other fuel filter that was on there. It had this element, and I bought this from Edelbrock. I brought an Edelbrock version because it looked exactly the same, and so it goes like that. Like, anyway, I changed the gaskets. I wanted to change the gaskets, and taking them apart, they just fell apart. They were just so hard. And of course, these did not fit in there, and I couldn't force them in there. And then there wasn't enough length because there was a big fat gasket on each side, so I couldn't get this screwed in. So I just put in a regular disposable type fuel filter. So one of those things where it looks good, but that's the way they fit or don't fit sometimes. And what I'm suspecting, and I'll have to check it out, I'll have to pull that whole thing off. See the inside of that? Oh, that is not looking too good. I think what's happened is that the inside of one of these short pieces of hoses that was included with the fuel regulator is coming apart inside. So I'm gonna change all of that stuff that's forward of the fuel filter and clean the carburetor out, put it together and try again. Okay, I think I found the issue. It was this short section of hose, which was provided with, I'm not sure if it was the regulator or the gauge, but it's just old and flaking off inside, and this is what I got out of this thing. That's exactly the kind of stuff, yep. It's exactly the kind of stuff that I was getting out of that carburetor. So it was getting past the filter because it was originally past the filter. The filter was coming from the fuel pump, and then this gauge assembly got installed on it. So here I was fighting a fuel contamination issue that didn't come from the tank. That's a good one. That's a first for me. What I'll do is I'll replace all these short little sections of hose, clean everything out, and get back to running my test. So that contamination in here, that's also something that would definitely mess with the fuel pressure regulator, how it would go up and down sometimes. So I'm going to clean that all out and put it back together and try it all again. So You know, this hose did not look that bad when I installed it. I'm thinking to myself, man, that was sure handy to have those short sections of hose. And I mean, I don't remember it looking as bad as it did, like that bone out or anything. And it's very possible that when I shoved that thing in there for the pressure gauge and the regulator, that I started flaking off some of that stuff. And that's also how it seemed to lodge on the wrong side of the fuel filter. Okay, I think we're ready to fire it up. The only thing we have on there now is fuel filter, pressure regulator, and the gauge. And we went ahead and wrapped this up with a layer of that heat tape and then some of that asphalt fabric loom, asphalt impregnated fabric loom, and then strapped it to the radiator hose. That's why we wanted to insulate that a little bit. So let's fire it up. See what's going on. Probably crank a little bit since that carburetor's empty. And it's cold. All right. Pressure is a little bit lower than 2 psi. We're going to adjust it to 2 psi and let it run and see what's going on. Basically means drive it around. See if we have a repeat of any of these other issues. Besides, it's getting late, afternoon. Take a break. Pretty hard today on that red van, but before I go and call it a day, I just wanted to show you the part for that Edelbrock clear view filter element, part number 8749, and I can clearly view that those gaskets are just way too big. I thought they were a little big, but I thought they might fit in there. No such luck. The filter element was fine. I got a new filter element in there, but until I get some nitrile O-rings, I'm not going to be able to use that fuel filter. So other than that, the Frankmobile is ready for more test driving.